For the past 3 years, the patience of over 1 billion people in China has been stretched. It is now growing thinner and thinner with every lockdown and round of mass COVID testing in the country. The COVID-19 cases are surging and the country's economy is on a downward spiral. China seems to be caught in a COVID-19 bind. The Chinese President Xi Jinping faces a difficult choice between loosening China's zero-tolerance COVID-19 policy or doubling down on restrictions that have locked down neighborhoods in the country. This has also stifled the country's economy. People in China are frustrated and unhappy. They are now raising their voice against the stringent lockdown measures. In the latest, people in China's southern manufacturing hub of Guangzhou clashed with white hazmat-suited riot police. The recent demonstration marks an escalation from the protests in Shanghai and Beijing, which took place over the weekend. COVID lockdowns, demonstrations and transport disruptions have also led to contraction of China's factory and services activity. The economy is suffering increasing damage from tightened virus controls. The Purchasing Managers Index, a key metric for manufacturing in China, is down to 48 this month compared to 49.2 in October. The non-manufacturing index, which measures the activity in the construction and service sectors, also declined to 46.7 from 48.7 in October. But despite a slumping economy, China is staunch on its zero COVID-19 policy. And visuals on your screen right now show a truck fleet transporting 8,000 isolation pods to build a new quarantine camp in the country. The officials have also resumed COVID combat measures such as mass testing in the country. In the latest, Beijing has also said that it will strengthen vaccination among elderly people in the country. The National Health Commission has said that it would target more vaccinations at people who are older than 80 years. It also aims to reduce the gap between basic vaccination and booster shots to 3 months for the elderly in China. Now, the patience of over 1 billion people in China has been stretched. The patience of people in the country is growing thinner and thinner with every lockdown and round of mass COVID testing in the country. The COVID-19 cases are surging and the country's economy right now is on a downward spiral. For more on this, we're now being joined by Dr. Benjamin Cowling, Chair Professor of School of Public Health at the University of Hong Kong. Welcome to the broadcast, Professor.
Hello.
Now, there is a surge in COVID-19 cases in China. The Chinese economy is on a downward spiral, and the people in the country are now raising their voice against China's zero COVID-19 policy. In your viewpoint, do you think that China has reached its tipping point now?
Well, I think it's not far away, but China's been very successful with zero COVID in the past 3 years. It's just very recently, Omicron's becoming so transmissible that it's very difficult to keep these stringent measures going and to keep cases at a low level.
Right. Now, there are various other countries around the world who have tackled the COVID-19 pandemic without the hue and cry, which is being seen in Beijing right now. Do you think that these stringent measures are justified in China, or is the Chinese President Xi Jinping overreacting at this moment?
Well, the Chinese strategy is very clear: to minimize the number of infections and then the number of deaths. And they've done that in the past 3 years. They have very few cases and very, very few COVID deaths compared to other parts of the world. And they want to keep it that way, but it's proving more and more difficult, more and more costly to do that. I think it's a very good objective. It's an honorable objective to protect people from COVID. It's just proving to be very, very difficult.
Right, but there are also reports on how people are protesting against the stringent COVID-19 measures in the country. What is your assessment on that?
Well, I can totally understand. I think 1 year ago and 2 years ago, most of the country was free of COVID and there were not many restrictions. There were only sporadic outbreaks here and there from time to time. But now in the second half of 2022, there's more and more outbreaks. They're occurring more frequently. They last for longer. And the consequences, the lockdowns and the testing and the other restrictions last for longer. And I think people are getting tired of those measures. And that's why we've heard about these protests, because of the fatigue and their frustration. How much longer are these going to go on for? And that is not clear.
My last question to you. Do you think that the protests in China are because of the COVID-19 restrictions or a bigger call for freedom and liberty in the country?
No, I think at the moment they're very much limited to the restrictions with COVID-19, and particularly the question of how much longer will these measures be in place. If the government was to say, we've just got to hold on for another week or another month or another 3 months, I think people would understand that. But now there's no timeline for when these measures will come to an end. They may be going to happen again and again and again, and that's where the frustration comes in.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing your insights on this. Thanks very much.